Thank you to whoever's doing the recording, and welcome to those of you that have joined us online. We might have a few more people coming in to the, yes, is someone else in a position to do the admitting from the waiting room? Thank you, David. Welcome those who are here. I'm Gill Frigerio, I'm the chair of NICEC, and I'm here with a host of my colleagues, NICEC Fellows, who have various roles in the organisation, and we want to make this an informal session. We're recording it so that it's viewable by those for whom this hasn't been a convenient time. But we really wanted to have a moment in this process of seeking applications from potential new fellows to provide as much information as possible, share a little bit about NICEC's history and where we see ourselves going in the future, and give people an opportunity to ask questions. And so that's the plan for now. Nice and informal. I will just give you some insight into who's here. So that's me, looking more groomed. We've got Charlie Ball, Julia Yates, Michelle Stewart, and Jane Artez, who's our former chair and our current treasurer, who are a panel of fellows who are able to speak about their own particular involvement in NICEC. And we've also got the appointments committee, the team who are running this appointments process, Tristram Hooley, Wendy Hirsch, Rosemary McLean, David Winter, and Charlie, who's also on the panel. And as we go through the session, you have an opportunity to ask questions of any of us. So that's basically the plan. We'll finish at 5:45, no later. Do any of you any of my colleagues want to say anything else about the session? Just checking the chat. I think we were having problems. Sarah was having problems with her audio. I hope that's got sorted. Okay, right. I'll crack on then. So first of all, to say a bit about NICEC and our history. Well, we have been around in some form or another since 1975, although personally I wasn't involved at that early stage. But we started off as a group of career development specialists, researchers, policy specialists, and other writers in the field. We became a learned society in around sort of 20 years ago or so, when we made a shift from being a research centre that was engaged in activity and had a range of freelance and employed people working with the organisation. We made a shift from that model to being the model of a learned society. And we really do aim to bring together people who work in all sorts of roles in the widest possible understanding of what career development work is. So we all know that there's lots of different forms of career development work. There are lots of different types of involvement. So there's practitioners, scholars, people who are interested in policy, people who are managing career services, and then there's, provision that's with all sorts of different labels on it, that uses all sorts of different language, career education, coaching, and so forth. And we really do aim to be across that breadth. And we often describe ourselves as a learning society for reflective practitioners. Not that we're all working in practice, but directly with clients, but we all have our own practice, if you like, and we're committed to being reflective on that. So that learning society model means that we're not a professional body. We're not aiming to kind of manage access to a particular professional standard or anything like that. There are other organisations that do that, and in the UK principally that's the Career Development Institute, who excuse my typo there, it did say partnership, and when I put ongoing at the beginning I obviously managed to lose a P. But we have a partnership with the Career Development Institute. So we're actually a company limited by shares, and the fellows are a group of people who all hold shares. So we have we look to optimally have around 40 fellows, and each fellow has a share, but that share, it's kind of a legal mechanism really, rather than anything that commits people financially to the organisation. Aside from that, we then also have members. So fellows pay their fellowship fee every year, and members pay a membership fee. We, as you're probably aware, in order to be interested in applying for fellowship, we have a series of regular events, a programme throughout the year, and that used to be a very much a kind of face-to-face programme. We have a series of fellows meetings. At the moment we have 6 a year, and in those meetings, as well as doing the running of the organisation, we spend time sharing the things that we're working on, and sort of sharing insights into that we're gleaning from the different forms of career development work, as well as planning our activities. And that feeds kind of seamlessly into our seminar series, our programme of seminars, which, you know, in the pre-pandemic times, it used to be we'd have a face-to-face meeting and then we'd have a seminar. Now, of course, we've gone online over the last couple of years, and that's working really well. We're not envisaging a return to face-to-face fellows meetings in the short term. We're going to keep doing those online and keep the seminars online. But that's the seminars are one part of our events programme. We also run network events, which are slightly longer, and we have run over recent years, we've run a few really successful conferences that have been sort of 2 to 3 day events with, as you'd expect, a sort of range of speakers and papers and workshops and so forth. And we also have a reasonably recent innovation. I think it's in its fourth or fifth year now, because Bill Law was very involved in the founding of NICEC. After he had died, we instituted a memorial award for a piece of writing by a student in career development. So we do that once a year as well. And critically, we also publish our journal a couple of times a year, which you may be familiar with. It used to be available solely as a hard copy for members and fellows, and PDFs available to members of the CDI. We've recently done a lot of work involved with moving to an open access model. So the NICEC journal is now freely available to everybody. And if you're familiar with it, you'll know it's kind of reasonably short articles, and we sort of position it as a mid-range publication. So it goes into a bit more detail, and it's a bit more research focused than the sorts of articles you might see in a trade magazine. They do tend to be focusing on research or expanding an argument, but they're not as long or detailed as you'd get in a journal like Journal of Career Assessment or British Journal of Guidance and Counselling. And we have a very friendly and supportive peer review process, because like with the Bill Law Award, we're seeking to develop people writing and disseminating their ideas in that sort of space. I had fun creating this slide. So I don't know if those of you here remember what was sometimes referred to as the Pink Book, Rethinking Careers, Education and Guidance, which was written by a number of the founders of NICEC, Tony Watts, Bill Law, John Killeen, Jennifer Kidd, Ruth Hawthorne, and there was work in there from others too. I was given that book to read in the late 90s when I was thinking about getting into careers work. The origin story of NICEC is very much linked to that, and to a number of people that worked out of Cambridge, London, that sort of area. In our present incarnation, we have broadened that out. I became a fellow, I think it was around 2013, we have articles of association which detail the responsibility of fellows as shareholders. We engage in, we like to talk about serious thinking about career development and innovation, and support one another's work. And an example of supporting one another's work is the Oxford Handbook, which is edited by 3 people who were fellows at the time, and we ran a launch event for the Oxford Handbook as a NICEC network event. What we're looking to do in the future is to revitalise the fellowship by having introduced this application process, which we can tell you a bit more about. We're seeking to continue to be innovative with our events programme, and to, through this recruitment process, really intentionally recognise the breadth and the diversity of the career development sector, and really look to make sure that we are well placed to support that intersection of scholarship, policy and practice. So I'm going to stop sharing just now, so that I can see everybody's face, and we can move to the kind of panel part of the experience. So just to, I'll just pause for a moment and see whether any of my colleagues want to say anything else about NICEC and our current activities and the things that we're doing.
Gill, I think Tanya has her hand up.
Tanya, hi.
No, I wasn't aware of having my hand up.
Oh,
Do I have my hand up?
Sorry, I mean, you've got a hand on your profile, Tanya.
Oh, have I? That's strange. I don't know why.
No,
that's a good way to get people involved, isn't it?
Oh,
it might just be your cursor, Charlie.
Sure, you all. That's hugely embarrassing. I think I'll go now.
I can't see Tanya's hand.
No.
It was my cursor.
That's a good point, though. If you want to raise a question, putting your hand up is a great way of doing it, isn't it?
Yeah. But does any NICEC people want to add any comment on our activities and what we do from what I said?
I think the only thing I would add, Jill, it's been really interesting how NICEC has evolved since I first got involved, and I should have known exactly when that was, but it was before 2013. And some people here have been there in NICEC a lot longer than that. And it really has changed quite a bit, I think, hasn't it? Wendy, you remember probably, you've been around in NICEC a long time, haven't you? How much it's changed, and it's become very, the idea of it being a learned society is really powerful, I think, because it does feel like a place where you can come and debate and think about things in a very thoughtful way.
Yeah.
It's perhaps just briefly worth reminding people that there are members as well as fellows. So yes, the fellows support each other and learn from each other, but we're also here really to support a wider membership. And beyond that, all the people who, for example, read the journal, many of whom are not members of NICEC at all. So I'm always really aware that it's a sort of, as a learned society, like all learned societies, it's really reaching out to people who maybe have relatively little time for research, although we hope still time for reflection. And so part of our role is also to think about how to really support those people at any career stage that they may be at with a wide range of interests.
Thanks, Wendy. Well, I'll say a bit more about my own involvement now, and then we'll move into the kind of taking it in turns as a panel to speak about the things that we've done with NICEC before we go into question and answers. So as I said, I was my background is in higher education careers work, first as a practitioner and then as a manager, and then I moved sideways into an educational role. So I'm involved in running the programs that we have at the University of Warwick, and that was when I was aware of NICEC as a practitioner and manager, and attended events on occasion, and benefited from that. Read the journal, actually wrote for the journal as well, but became a fellow sort of thereafter, and I found it very affirming, very welcoming space. You know, people here that predated me made me feel really welcome as a fellow, and I learned a lot from the discussions that we had at fellows meetings. You know, I was sort of able to see that my own reflections and concerns and interests in across the breadth of career development work were kind of chiming with the things that other people were saying. So I found that really helpful, kind of in terms of developing my own voice and my own kind of a critical understanding, if you like. So I got involved in a few different things. I was involved in running of the conference that we had in Manchester in 2019, and in a number of events. So, for example, one of the things I've been really interested in has been diversity and decoloniality, to coin a phrase, in the kind of in career development work. And so we ran a seminar couple of years ago, sort of based around that, and so I really believe that there was a vibrant future for NICEC, and a need for an organisation like NICEC, and that was why I agreed to step into the role of chair in it was a couple of years ago now. So yeah, September 2020, and it's meant to be a 3-year term. I've just agreed to extend that by 12 months. The first couple of years have been very much dominated by us refreshing our articles in order to enable us to have this much more open process of appointing fellows as part of a kind of an increasingly open outlook. And so it's going to be nice to have the next couple of years to work with new fellows, and as we come out of the pandemic and the need for all events to be online, to start to think about what a programme of activities might look like in the future. So yeah, a couple more years as chair, but I very much hope involvement with NICEC for the rest of my working life, and potentially even beyond. We do have a category of emeritus fellow. I did a little video which I think is available online, which says much the same thing. So I'll hand over now to Charlie, who I think is going to say a bit about his involvement with NICEC.
Thanks, Jill. Hello, everybody. I'm Charlie. I didn't put an introduction in the chat. I will do it afterwards. My story is slightly unusual because I'm not a careers practitioner in a conventional sense. I'm not qualified. I've never taken any postgraduate courses, and I don't advise students. Or indeed anybody. My role, some of you know who I am, some of you don't. I am the higher, well, for many years I've unofficially operated as the higher education sector body's labour market specialist, and actually as of the 1st of December, I'm officially the higher education sector body's labour market specialist, having moved into a new role last week. And so for many years, I've spent a lot of time working on labour market questions, working with careers professionals and helping them and advising them on issues in employment and the labour market. I was approached a few years back to become a NICEC fellow, and my first, I have to say that my first reaction was along the lines of, is this some kind of mistake? I'm not I mean, I work with the careers sector and I'm in the careers field, but do these people consider me to be a careers professional? Do they consider me to be a peer? And I found that quite difficult. And I shouldn't have worried, because it was an extraordinarily kind, generous and welcoming group. Very kind with their experience, very generous with their time, and with their insight. And what's extraordinary from my point of view is that in all the time that I've been a NICEC fellow, and I think I can't remember exactly how long it is, it's about 6 or 7 years, I've never felt as if my specialism is peripheral or unusual. I've always felt included in everything that takes place. I've always felt that I'm contributing, even though, as I say, a lot of the discussions are about careers theory and careers practice, which is quite simply outside of my field of expertise. And I've always been made to feel as if I've got something useful and valuable to offer. And that has been a very transformative experience for me, for my personal development and for my career. I'd like to feel that I'm contributing something useful to the NICEC process, but mainly it's a very warm and welcoming group of very, very insightful, experienced people who are keen to share that insight and that experience widely. One of my key interests, one of the things that I spend a lot of my professional life doing, is dissemination, and trying to find new and innovative and effective ways of communicating quite complex careers related information to a informed lay audience. And the discussions that I've had with this group and the insights they've given me of their own experiences have been invaluable in working out how to complex the sometimes quite niche information that I produce. And so I found this to be a very generous, very broadly based group. It's not all conventional careers practitioners. It's, to an extent, it's the great and good of the careers world. You could think of it in that way, but it's also a very curious group of people who are always inquiring, always asking, always trying to push things forward. And I think opening us up to some new insights and some new perspectives will be immensely healthy for everybody involved. So I hope you can engage with the process. I hope those of you who think, is my experience too niche? Have I got, maybe I'm not entirely centered on careers practice. Maybe I don't, maybe I'm not the strongest theoretician who's ever lived. Don't worry about any of that. We have the strongest theoreticians already. And what we're looking for are people with a slightly different perspective who can bring something new to the table, who can bring interesting insights, whether it be new areas of practice, new client groups, new geographic information. And I know from the chat there are a few of you who specialise in parts of the geographically in parts of the careers experience we struggle to reach. All of this will add to us, to add to NICEC, add to the careers field, and will add to you. So we hope we hope you can find this process interesting and stimulating, and hear from some interesting people.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you. And now I'll hand over to Julia Yates, who's going to tell you about her time in NICEC.
Thank you, Jill. Well, I think this is going to work quite seamlessly, because I think there's a lot that Jill said and that Charlie said that absolutely resonates with me. So I've met most of you before, but for those I haven't, my name's Julia. I work at City, part of the University of London. I run a master's programme in organisational psychology, which sounds as though it's got nothing to do with careers, but a little bit similar to Jill. I was a careers advisor, and then I was a head of careers, and now the stuff that I teach about and research about is all careers related. So I became a NICEC Fellow some quite a large number of years ago. I joined at the same time as you, Rosemary, didn't I? We joined together. And I absolutely love NICEC, so I'm really thrilled to see so many of you here tonight sort of thinking about getting involved. So I was thinking about what I like about NICEC, and I think I've narrowed it down to 4 key points. So the first thing is I'm really sold on the kind of underpinning philosophy of NICEC. So NICEC is all about bridging research and practice and policy, and I think that's hugely important. So I'm really enthusiastic about belonging to an organisation that does that. Part of that, Jill mentioned the journal, and I think the journal is an absolute jewel in NICEC's crown, that it sort of fills a space where there is no other journal. It's the only academic journal out there that I could ever imagine a practitioner reading. And I think for that reason, it's a really important thing. So I'm really sold on the kind of underpinning principle of NICEC. The second thing, and I think this kind of touches really on what Charlie was saying, that I feel in NICEC, I found my tribe. So when I'm, you know, in my day job, I feel people aren't really interested in my careersy stuff. I mean, my students have to politely sit through me talking about it. But as far as my colleagues are concerned, they don't really care. I start banging on about it to my family and they really have no interest. But I come to NICEC and I'm surrounded by other people who also find career stuff really interesting. Linked to that, and again, echoing what Charlie was saying, I think the NICEC Fellows are really clever and really kind and very generous with their knowledge and their understanding. So I often feel that I can kind of bring half-baked thoughts to NICEC, and I get this amazing group of really clever people really trying to kind of help me make them better. So that's brilliant. So number 3, and sort of linked to that, I guess, is the idea that I think my experience is quite niche. So I'm quite good on HE stuff and I'm quite good on theory stuff. I know nothing about what goes on in schools. I know nothing about policy or colleges. And it's brilliant to have the other NICEC Fellows kind of telling me a little bit about that, keeping me informed. And the last thing I was going to say is about the specific opportunities that NICEC affords. So I love being involved in the conferences. I've done some of those. I've done some cutting edge events that Rosemary might talk about, which I've loved. And at the moment, I'm working on the Bill Law Award, which again is a thing I'm really keen on. So there we go. 3 minutes and 5 seconds, Jill.
Thank you, Julia. And I'll hand over now to Michelle.
Hi, I remembered to put my mute on, or love to take my mute off, so it's lovely to see you all this evening and thank you for joining us. I joined NICEC just around 2007, 2008 when I was doing my doctoral studies, was part of a complete change of career. They were the only group within London or actually anywhere that I knew that would happily discuss career theories, labour market information, research that was going on, all the stuff that informed what I was doing and what I was thinking about. And even better was when you started talking about labour market statistics, or you started talking about social cognitive theory or matching, their eyes didn't glaze over. They actually contributed to that. It was a great opportunity to meet some of the past and present gurus in this field. So there in the room, you know, people like the late Bill Law or the late Audrey Collins or Tony Watts. And then you've got people with different areas of experience like Julia in theory and Wendy Hirsch in organisational theory and labour market information. Tristram, who again has worked with people all over the place. So they share this knowledge and make you feel very welcome, which I found was wonderful. They didn't think, oh, this person doesn't know a thing and, you know, we have to treat her with kid gloves and be a bit patronising. There was none of that at all. They actually welcomed my questions and my inquiries. There was a great diversity in the backgrounds and people knowing different areas. Sometimes you can be led to think that careers guidance is just a decision at year 9, what GCSEs am I going to do, or what A-levels am I going to do, forgetting that even within the qualifications, there's such a range of options. But it goes beyond that into further education, higher education, the workplace. We have amongst our fellows, Rosemary McLean, who does a completely different type of work, working with organisations and brings that knowledge to the table. And we've got Stephen McNair, who's looked at midlife careers, along with Lynn Barham. And then we've got people like Jane Artest, who have done lots of research and can tell you about, you know, methodology, what it actually means and different ways of approaching real research. So it's been great to meet with those people and to learn from their expertise. And also for my own continuing professional development, I was able to take up the position of editor, or one of the editors for the journal, and learned how to field what some of you may have had as damning feedback that I've received when I've tried to do articles, said would be a great article, but it needs completely rewriting. I think, what do they want? What do they mean completely rewriting? What are they looking for? How shall they structure it? I thought it was okay, obviously not, but you know, and then finding actually what's often meant is a tweak here, tweak there, change of reordering, few corrections, bit more depth. Hey presto, as we've seen from our journal, we've had some brilliant articles from a whole range of people. So as I said, first got to know NICEC through doing my doctoral studies, thought this is a lovely group, really welcoming, and they brought me into the fold, moved on to become a fellow, and then thought I want to make my own contribution to this, so I've become one of the directors. It's not an onerous obligation, belonging, but I can tell you I get a lot more out of it than I feel I put into it, and it informs my work on a day-to-day basis. If you don't feel like becoming a fellow, or if you're not successful, because we're not judging you today, then do consider becoming a member. It's a great way to get to know people, great way to get access to expertise and regular seminars. Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much, Michelle. We've got Jane Artez and Wendy Hirsch here too. I'll just see if they want to add their own quick thought before we move to questions. Jane.
Thanks, Jill, and hello, everybody. I know quite a lot of the faces that have appeared on my screen this evening, so it's a delight to see you all again. I don't think I've got an awful lot to add to those great tributes to NICEC, except that I just enjoyed being part of it, I guess. My background is that I started out as in career guidance work, sort of migrated into training and development in universities, and that led in the direction of research, and research more recently mainly about careers work. So I see my sort of role as being somebody who's kind of dipped a toe into many of the fields that NICEC already covers. And I think that's probably NICEC's strength, actually, that it is a body of people who are all interested in careers work, but all from very different perspectives. And it's that sort of cross-sectoral feel about it that is really uniting, and I can only echo what people have already said about it being friendly and nice to belong to. And I love your comment, Julia, about it. I found my tribe. That's what I felt when I joined. Suddenly I thought, all these people here are on the same page as me, which is unusual, isn't it, really? So join, yeah. If not as a friend, then please join as a member, because we'd love to have you.
And Wendy, anything from you?
Only to say that I come from yet another different background. I'm self-employed, and indeed quite a lot of NICEC fellows are, so that's worth people knowing. And guidance people are not my tribe at all. Well, they kind of are now, but I've been doing career development work all my working life. My PhD was on careers, but I'd never met a guidance professional till I rocked up at NICEC. So I know guidance people think they own the whole of careers, but they, sadly, they don't really. And so it's been really an education for me. Several other people have mentioned the breadth of view. Not only have I learned a lot about career guidance, but also, not just for adults or school children, in primary schools, in community settings. So it really doesn't matter what setting you work in. I think, the richer our range of backgrounds, the better. And all the government policy stuff that I don't have much patience with, but, wonderful people like Tristram keep me completely informed about what's going on in the wider government policy space, which is very crucial to all of us. Yeah, so I think it's just that breadth, really, and the fun of it.
Thank you. So we've told you a lot about the range of things we do. Now we'd like to hear from you. What sort of questions do you have? You can put your hand up, you can put them in the chat. I will field them, try to point them to the best person to answer them. Lucy, hi, good to see you.
Hi everyone from Ireland. It's cold over here. I don't know what it's like.
It's pretty cold here too.
We're getting a cold snap now. I'm not familiar with the process of applying for the fellowship. I was tipped off about this event, which is great because I didn't know about it. So by somebody in the UK, I have a lot of respect for professionally, and so I'm wondering, like, what is the process for applying as a fellow, and is there evaluation criteria? How does it all work? Because I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to hand to Tristram to handle that because he's been working with the group who've put the process together.
Hey. Hi there. It's not super complicated. All we're asking for is that people submit by the 9th of January a CV and a covering letter. But we have set out on the NICEC website what the criteria are. I'll just quickly go through them because I might as well. So we're looking for people who can provide evidence that they have made a significant impact in the field of career development. That could be in practice, development, policy or research. A willingness to facilitate or stimulate constructive dialogue, a commitment to continued learning in the field, and an interest in joining NICEC and actively working to develop its activities. And I think that's one of the things that we are trying to stress is that fellowship in NICEC, anyone can become a member, and it doesn't require you do anything other than you can do it entirely as a consumer. But if you become a fellow, we're looking for people who want to get involved and do things. Now, what you do, there's lots of different options. It's not that we've got, we haven't saved up all the horrible jobs to give whoever comes in new, but we are looking for people who want to be active participants in a fellowship, which is about growing the kind of engagement and interest in research, policy, practice, in careers, in this form of a learning society. So yeah, so that's what we're looking for. So but it's a simple application. We'll then go on after that and we'll probably have some interviews or some kind of formal process next year. But if you're interested in being considered, then please just put in an application for the 9th of January. The only other thing I would say about this is we're not the fellowship is not huge. I can't remember exactly how many we number at the moment, but we decided we didn't want to grow much more than about 10% a year. So we're only going to recruit 4 people this year. So if you don't get in, I mean, just looking at the names who are here today, if you don't get in, it's not necessarily a personal comment on you. And so, we would encourage people to apply again in the future as well and get involved in NICEC in other ways. But we anticipate going forward that we will have a more formal open process like this for recruitment than we have had in the past.
Thanks, Tristram. Yeah, just to emphasize, so in the past we used to work on a model where we'd identify a gap and then we think about who we knew who was in that gap, and what we're wanting to do now is to be much more open and transparent about what that process is. I've got a question from Susan in the chat, and then Sabia had her hand up. So Susan's asked about our pattern of meetings. So yeah, it used to be roughly 6 days a year. We'd meet in London, have a fellows meeting in the afternoon and a seminar early evening. And that worked really well when the majority of people involved in NICEC were based in the southeast of England. We obviously had to move away from that. We used to have sometimes vary the location of some events, some meetings around the country, around the UK. When we had to go online because of the pandemic, we found that works reasonably well for the fellows meetings and for the seminars. So roughly we have 6 fellows meetings a year, 6 seminars, and we expect fellows to most people are attending a good half of those. and then we're going to trial doing one of our network events, which is a slightly longer event, sort of 2.5 to 3 hours face to face over the summer. But I think, I don't know about you, but it feels very much like it's not quite clear what's emerging yet about what sorts of things people are prepared to travel to and what people would prefer to do online. You know, what are the affordances of being able to do things online, and what needs to be done face to face, and what's possible hybrid too. So we're still a little bit fluid around that, but I hope that answers your question as well as I'm able at the moment, Susan. And Sabia, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Jill. Okay, hello everybody. Great to see some kind of familiar faces and not so familiar faces this evening. Apologies for sort of kind of rocking up late. I had a client that I needed to handle. So great questions. I want to say, Lucy, you asked a great question. That was something that I was going to ask. So thank you, Tristram, for answering that. And Susan, again, in terms of, yeah, what do the meetings look like? Again, that was something I was interested in learning about as well. But I guess for me, sort of kind of two questions I guess I've got. One was a follow-up question from what Tristram shared, which was that, you know, you as a fellow, once you sort of kind of go through the process and you've been successful, you get to be involved in different projects. It'd be great to hear sort of like a case study or an example of something that's happened in the last 12 to 18 months in terms of projects of what a potential new fellow could be sort of expected to or anticipate getting involved in. So that's question number one. And then I don't know who this question goes to, as it's more sort of kind of question around the sort of application process, which is that is there a way that there's an existing fellow can work with a potential someone that's interested in becoming a fellow to kind of show kind of get support with the application process? So yeah, those are my two questions. Thank you.
Okay. Who's the best person to answer that?
Do you want me to answer the second?
Yeah.
I mean, what we've said to everybody is it's probably a good idea if you're interested. It's not essential, but to have an informal conversation with somebody who you know, if you know anyone, or if you don't, approach someone. Everyone, I think, will be pretty open. I've had a number of informal conversations with people. I'm on the appointments committee and I've said I won't look at anybody's application because I don't really think that's fair. Other fellows may be happy to look at applications. To be honest, I don't think it's really necessary. I mean, we've set out the requirements. If you have a chat with people and see whether it's for you, you probably should be able to put together an application. And yeah, so I think that's it in terms of, I think it's very good to talk to someone. I don't think you really need a lot of coaching to get through. You're all careers professionals of one kind or another, so you should be able to
well,
put a
we all know
CV
the
together.
value of it.
Yeah,
we can coach ourselves.
But yeah, just on, I mean others will probably come in, but in terms of what sort of things you can do, I mean, it could be projects, but you know, it could be everything really. We're talking about from chairing a meeting to submitting an article for the journal, to helping to organise the conference, to being involved with professional development activities that we run for the CDI, to being organising a seminar, and sometimes that can be quite a simple thing. But I think, you know, and then there's roles like being on the board and being treasurer and all sorts of things like that that you would get in any kind of voluntary association. But so it's not that we're kind of saying there's a certain minimum number of hours and so on that people put in, but I think the idea is the fellowship are actually, we're shareholders, we own NICEC in a sense, we run NICEC, and so if you're joining as a sort of an active member of that group.
Yeah, I was just thinking about Nalini Thambar, who is probably one of the most recent fellows who joined, who had done her doctoral study around professional identity of career development, people working in higher education, and one of the first things she did was a presentation on that, and she then has been involved in delivering different a seminar to NICEC, and also spoken at one of our cutting edge events, which are events that we run for CDI members, which is another piece. But what we're going to do is new fellows will be a sort of given a kind of informal mentor, if you like. So you're not expected to suddenly, you know, lead on things for NICEC, but there'll be a sort of onboarding process. Now it is 5:45. Wendy, you've taken your hand down, so I'll move towards wrapping up if that's okay. It's been really great to see so many of you here today. Yeah, we're in a period of managing some growth as we move to this kind of post-pandemic new set of processes, way of working as an organisation. So as Tristram says, 4 new fellows on this occasion, and then we'll see where we are and evaluate the process after that. Do be in touch with us as needed if further queries arise, or if you're reviewing this recording and there's something that you're thinking of that we haven't answered here today. But thank you very much, everyone, NICEC colleagues, for all the work that you do and have done in the past for NICEC, and potential future fellows and members. Thank you for giving up the early part of your evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Kate. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Cheers, Sophia.